Once, there was a sheep farmer. He had a high fence around his property to protect his sheep from wolves. But then one handsome young sheep asked, "Why are we so exclusive around here? Everybody knows that sheep are peaceful creatures, but to have this wall up around us makes it seem like we're fearful, like we're exclusive elitist." So they rammed the fence posts with their heads until the fence toppled and a breach was opened in the fence. Soon, a band of wolves passed by. Their leader said, "We would be idiots to rush in and start eating sheep in broad daylight. The sheep would panic and the fence would be rebuilt. Let's move in among them and pretend to be their friends, and we can eat well for years to come." He approached the leader of the sheep and said, "We see your goodwill gesture, and we would like to live among you in peace." The sheep were so pleased. Their peace strategy had worked. Day after day, wolves and sheep would lie down in the sun and enjoy the green pastures. The wolves would even eat a few mouthfuls of grass to reassure the sheep that they weren't a threat at all. But each night, the wolves would find the sheep that had drifted away from the flock and have a feast. The next morning, when the sheep would realize one of their members was missing, the wolves would pretend to be outraged and would join with them in a pretend search for the perpetrators. Eventually, the sheep realized that they had been tricked, and they asked the farmer to rebuild the fence, and they became more distrustful of outsiders than they ever had before. This is a story from the book The Secret Message of Jesus by Brian McLaren. Now, there are two great dangers with religion: the danger of hostile exclusion and the naive danger of including everybody and every idea that accompanies them. While it's true that judgmentalism and exclusion, forms of religious hostility, are significant dangers, there's another real problem of which we want to be aware: the problem of universalism, claiming that everyone is fine, every belief system is cool. That doesn't actually validate a true spiritual experience. And as adherents to the authority of the Bible, we are not entirely free to make these claims. There are some lines and divisions about what it means to practice biblical spirituality. The Christian story claims to be the true story about God and the world. And there's a lot of talk about God in our media, in TV, and in film. There are a lot of far-ranging opinions about God. Anybody who's ever been to a community college has a little piece of paper that says they're smart. Those people have their own perspective on what God is, or who God might be, or how many gods there might be, or where we might find these gods. But our claim as people who base our understanding on the God of the Bible is that the Christian story is about the person and work of Jesus Christ. It's the story of the revealed, incarnate, and embodied God. It's a story that began with the creation of the universe, a story that continued with the creation of humanity as part of an already created world made in the image of and likeness of God, a story of humanity fallen away from God, separated, and then regenerated, brought back to God, a story that continued through the New Testament and continues today with you and with me and everybody we know and the supporting cast in that story. Now, ultimately, this story reaches its conclusion in this world only to be begun anew in another world. Now, this is the true story of God and the world. And of course, there are other competing stories, the story of Islam or Judaism or Eastern mysticism, for example. But our belief is that the Christian story is true. That's not to say there aren't elements of truth in these other stories, but we believe this story because it's based on Scripture. And this was the reason we talked about the authenticity and reliability of the biblical text in one of the previous lessons. So now we can refer back to the Bible and use it as our ultimate source of understanding.